Hello, hello. How's it going, good people? All right, I'm gonna share my screen here. Get the slides here, and we'll get rocking and rolling. While we wait, if you're on the live here, just comment where you're from, what you're up to today, what was business, how are things going. Gonna get the slides up here. Present. Let's just share screen. Let's do screen 2. Move this over here. All right, here we go. All right, so today I want to talk about how to engineer your wholesale business to achieve your goals in less time with less effort. Yes, it is totally possible to create an asset in your business that allows you to achieve your goals with less effort in less time. In business, especially in the real estate space, we often think about utilizing leverage in terms of capital, leveraging partners, but we don't think about leveraging technology. Think about leveraging software and assets that we build with our hands, our mind, and our time. And I'm here to tell you that the largest returns that you can have in your business are going to be when you're spending time developing these assets in your business. These assets are going to be in the form of software. They're going to be in the form of SOP, standard operating procedures. They're going to be in the terms of how you deal with title and how you deal with employees and how you onboard employees and how you take leads from new lead in to um, qualification into booking an appointment with your closer or with you, your sales process. These are assets that take time to develop. But if you engineer your business in a way, it allows you to achieve the goals that you have set out in less time with less effort. Because leverage is all about how can I move this giant boulder without using my two hands? Well, I'm just going to go find the longest lever I can to make it easier to move this boulder. And the analogy that I use all the time to help us understand how business works is a merry-go-round. So those old, I guess it's a merry-go-round, but those old ones that used to be at play sets that are metal, heavy, you load up a bunch of friends on it, and you get it moving around in a circle. In order to get that thing going, you got to give some effort to get it going. But if you're like me and my friends who wanted to be engineers growing up, we just backed up one of our Razor scooters next to it and just turned that thing on full blast, and we got that thing spinning super fast. So we're able to have just as much fun as everybody else, but with less effort, and we're able to get it moving faster in less time. You can do the same thing in your business, and there's a process that you want to follow. So say I'm going to jump into that process. So this is what it looks like when you engineer your business. You have a set of systems that allow you to achieve your goal. And for most of us, that goal initially is revenue. I want to make a certain amount of money. But then it becomes quickly, once you realize that the money is not as important as you thought it was, once you achieve a certain level of income, you want to achieve other things. So for me, I have 5 kids. I want to achieve time freedom. I want to be able to spend time with my kids. I want to be able to make it to their activities. I want to be at the dance recitals. I want to be at the swim meets. Leverage inside of the business, designing a business and the systems that go along with that business are what allows me to have that freedom. There's really 4 quadrants, and this goes back to like the rich dad, poor dad, 4 quadrants that you can be in as a business owner. And unfortunately, most of us get stuck in one that kind of reframe as the um, you would call it the self-employed business owner, which is where most of us fall in. So we're typically closing 1 to 2 deals per month, and you're just hustling and grinding to get everything done. It's all you. There's no real systems. You don't have a VA or have a team, and everything that you get is you have to go out, hunt, and kill that. Then you move into the evolved self-employed entrepreneur, where you maybe get a VA to help you start bringing in some lead flow, to start qualifying leads. You start building some systems, but everything vastly still centers around you being the primary person driving the goals of the business. Then you move into the CEO seat where you have taken some time to develop an asset like this, which this is our operating system that we build based on Podio for our clients that allows them to move out of that day to day and find people to run the system on their behalf. So, someone to run the marketing that puts the leads into the system, someone to run the qualification, someone to run the follow up process, to take the phone calls, to qualify the sellers, to send the offers. Now we're starting to engineer a process at which we can put people at specific places to achieve our goal with less effort on our part. And all it takes is us taking some time and developing a system like this to allow us to do that. Again, we can go back to the methodology where we're just hustling and grinding, but eventually you will burn out. You will get sick. You will have life events that come, and your business will fall off the map because you're not there to show up to run things. Now, when we start to engineer and design systems in businesses, we can start putting people in places in the business to start to run the business for us, and we start to be able to just look at the business systems and engineer where there's bottlenecks, where there's constraints, educate people in those specific seats on how to improve or get better so that the business gets better results. This is when we move into the CEO phase. And then eventually you move into the last phase, which is the investor phase, where you become an investor in the business, where you are just allocating capital. You are looking at the business and seeing, how can I achieve the goals? Where does capital need to be allocated in terms of time, in terms of financial capital, in order to move the business forward? And you're typically working a few hours per week on the business, meeting with managers and your senior leadership, growing and scaling the business. That's what it looks like when you get to that final stage. But you don't get there overnight. Even when you have the system installed in your business, like we help our clients do, where we directly install this, which helps you bypass a lot of the time and effort it takes to build the system. You still have to go through the CEO phase in order to get to the investor phase, because you have to learn the lessons that it takes to get you to this process. So how can you engineer the business? Well, there's phases of growth. There's three, and then there's an ongoing phase that you're going to be in at all times, no matter what you do. No matter what you do, you're always going to have to be engineering the business. Let me get my mic here so I come through a little clearer. You're always going to have to be engineering the business. You're always going to have to be optimizing and scaling things. And there's phases that you go through in order to do this. So the first phase is goal setting. We have to goal set and then reverse engineer planning to figure out how can we achieve the goals that we want. A lot of people get into business with the goal of, hey, I want to have freedom. I want to achieve a certain revenue number, but they don't really clearly define what that goal is for them. What I'd like you to do in this phase is sit down and design what your desired life looks like. What does your day look like? What do you do when you wake up? How do you communicate with your team? How do you work? What do you do? What does that perfect day look like for you? Map that out, and that'll help you set your goals and your targets accordingly. What I would remind you to do is also, when you're doing this goal setting, set your parameters. It's super important that you set parameters, because if you don't have parameters when you're setting your perfect day or setting your goals, that allows you to inflate these goals, or you fall into what's called mimetic design, mimetic I can't remember the phrase, but there's a book about it, where when we don't clearly define what our goals are, we end up taking on other people's goals without even knowing it. We think that there are goals. We think that these are the things that we want to achieve, simply because we're around other people that stated that this was their goal. So when you design your goals and you start to reverse engineer what it looks like to get to that path, put parameters in place where it's, hey, I want to make $100,000 a year, but I want to work 20 hours per week. Or I want my primary objective to be spending time with family, or I want to take X amount of vacations per year. When you design your goals with those parameters, they're called bumpers. It allows you to make sure that when you bump into that, let's say your goal was to work 20 hours per week and you're working 80, it's very clear that you need to delegate in order to get to your desired end goal. So in phase one, what we like to do is, oh, sorry, I skipped straight through here. Oh, these got out of order. All right, phase one here. Phase one, you want to use a calculator or a planner to figure out business wise what it takes you to get to your desired income goal. What are the parameters or the bumpers that you're going to put around this to make sure that you don't go off the rails and start to achieve goals that aren't necessarily ones that you want or fall into the hedonic treadmill where you keep pushing this goal further and further and further. But you said that your desired life, what would help you achieve that is $20,000 a month take home or revenue for the business or whatever that is. So we take all of our clients through this business planning calculator here where we plug in what their desired income goal is. And then based off of the standard numbers in the business, what it takes to actually get you to that end goal. So now you have a what we call a North Star. You know, this is what I need to achieve in order to get to my goals. Here's what my bumpers are. Here's what I'm not. Sorry, one second. Here's what I'm not going to run into. Here's where I'm not going to overstep my boundaries so that I can live the life that I want. By designing it this way and then reverse engineering with the numbers, it puts you on a straighter path to your goal. Similar to where if I was going to take a trip cross country, I'm not going to try to do it with no GPS or MapQuest or map in general. I'm not just going to hit the road and then try to figure out how to get to New York from Phoenix without having some type of map or plan to know that I'm on the right track, I'm heading in the right direction, and I'm going to achieve what I want. If I'm going to New York, there needs to be a reason or a purpose of why I want to get there. And this is why people always talk about what's your why? What do you want to achieve? Design your why, then reverse engineer the business that helps you achieve your why. When you start out the business this way, it makes it way easier to make sure that you're motivated to achieve your goals. A lot of times you run into burnout because burnout is simply the disconnect between what you're doing and what you want to achieve. And when you plan the business out and reverse engineer the numbers, you effectively minimize the risk that you run into burnout because you've designed what the plan is, you designed how to get there, and now you just need to execute on the plan. It's not, well, am I doing the right thing? Or maybe I'm not doing enough of the right thing. We want to make sure that we're always doing the correct actions to get us to our end goal. So then we move into phase two, which is starting to build out the systems that help you achieve those goals in less time with less effort. So I want to map out all the components it takes to build the initial systems. I want to dedicate the time to start building the assets. So I want to earmark on my calendar. This is time to build assets. This is my time to develop the system that's going to help me achieve my goal, and then start deploying those assets and testing them. You want to make corrections and continue to build out those systems on your to-do list. And just remember that testing takes time. It takes time and data. So don't test in a vacuum. You want to implement the system, whether that is, let's say, your marketing system on the front end, and run some data through it. If you hire cold callers, don't run them for a week and be like, the cold callers aren't working. Let them run, get some data, and ensure that what you put in place is actually going to work, because testing takes time, because you can't make decisions on whether or not something is effectively working with 3 attempts or 4 attempts. Most likely, it's going to take 100 or so attempts to make sure that what you designed can withstand the test of business and life and changing circumstances in the economy. So make sure that you take time and make sure that you make corrections to that system as you go. And you always want to be screening your new ideas and documenting them, but screening them against your goals and then implement. What you don't want to do is have an idea and then directly go and implement it right away. What this helps protect you against is the shiny object syndrome, which is you see a new tactic, you see a new strategy. In this case, it could be something like novations, which is what everyone's pushing right now. And you say, oh, I'm going to implement that in my business. Well, for some of you, if you look at the way that your business is structured and you look at your goals, it doesn't really make sense for you to start utilizing novations if your primary business is fix and flipping properties. If you want deeper discount, and again, this is just a an answer. Like you could definitely use novations if you're fixing and flipping. Most people would actually, but if you say, hey, I only need to close, let's say 2 deals a year, well, I don't need to maximize my revenue with novations on, let's say, dead leads or leads that don't meet my criteria using this strategy. So I can effectively ignore it because there's 1,000 different ways to grow the business. There's 1,000 different strategies or techniques that you can utilize. You want to make sure you take those, screen against your goals first, and then implement. And three things that you want to remember when you're screening is really the three main objectives you want to have when designing and growing your businesses. Does this help me increase the amount of opportunities or deal flow that I'm getting? Does it help me increase my closing rate? So am I able to close more of those opportunities? Or does it help decrease my expenses by making the business more efficient? Typically, if it's not falling into one of those three, it's not a fit for your desired outcome or your goal. So you can effectively ignore that strategy. What too many people do is, again, that mimetic desire, which is I'm going to mimic what I see everyone else doing. And that leads you to a very varying course back and forth all across the place, um, trying to achieve a goal that isn't really the goal that you set out to do. It's just that's what everyone else is doing. So that's what I'm going to do too. So this helps guard you against that because in business, we're not necessarily looking to achieve astronomical growth, the unicorn startup type, the $1 billion type business. What we're trying to do is reduce the risk, one, that we go out of business, reduce the risk that when we invest money into our business, that we get a return on it, and reduce the risk of us going bankrupt, essentially. And by putting all these things in place, both for the business and then also for us, the entrepreneur, we drastically reduce that risk, which ensures that given enough time, we can achieve our goals. And it's something that it's taken me a long time to learn. I've worked with a lot of mentors and coaches to understand that fact. But when you start to engineer the business in that way to reduce the risk by having strategic systems in place, it makes it way easier to play the game because now you're operating by the rules, you know how things are done, you know how to reduce your risk. So again, given enough time, you're going to achieve your goals. So let's move on to phase three here. So phase three is we want to document our ideas, again, screen using the goals, and then implement. Our three objectives are going to be increasing opportunities, increasing closing rate, and decreasing expenses. And then once I have my system built, I want to just be identifying what the bottlenecks are. So where things are getting stuck, where there's challenges, what constraints are keeping me from growing at the rate that I want or achieving the next level of growth if that's what I'm looking for, and then create assets that can be used multiple times. Often what we do is we see a fire and we go put out that fire. When if we take back and we take a step back and we look at, well, what caused this fire? Where did this fire come from? Why is this fire reoccurring? Then we can go in and build a sprinkler system to prevent this type of fire from coming up again. And the preventing from us having to jump in and put out that fire. Oftentimes in business, that's a much better way to operate because we're operating by what's called first principles. We're not looking at a fire and then immediately grabbing our fire extinguisher or a bucket of water trying to put it out. We're looking at it and say, okay, well, what caused this fire? Why does this fire keep reoccurring? What's the damage that this fire is going to create? What are the outcomes of this? And then how can I put a system in place or an asset that can be used multiple times to solve this problem? And we just typically want to rinse and repeat that. It's boring, and the boring stuff is so easy not to do that people often ignore it and chase the shiny objects. Oh, I'm going to implement creative financing because that's what I see everyone else doing. That's what I need to do. Or I need to go get into fix and flips or developments or into land or whatever strategy pops up and is the flavor of the week. When really, if we look at our core business, we just identify what the bottlenecks and constraints are and then build assets to solve that problem over multiple times, we will often achieve much greater results than the people that are hopping around from opportunity to opportunity. Because what a lot of people don't understand is those opportunity seekers or those people that are hopping into new opportunities, all you're seeing when you see people winning in that is the survivorship bias. And all survivorship bias is is you only hear about the wins. You only hear about the person that hits the lotto and wins $1 billion. You don't hear about the millions of people that are wasting money on lotto tickets and not winning. You don't hear about the person that wins a $500 scratch off at the gas station. You only hear about the big winners. So when you see these new strategies pop up, just realize you're only going to see the winners. You're not going to see the people that failed with this new strategy. So again, screen it against those objectives and understand, is this going to help me achieve the goals that I set out? And is it going to help me increase opportunities, increase my close rate, decrease expenses, and live the life that I want? So by using these principles, it makes it effectively much, much easier to go back and build a system that looks like this. Because all I'm doing is looking at, okay, where's the bottleneck in this process? Where am I missing out on an opportunity to increase opportunities, increase close rate, or decrease my expenses? Which in this case, if I'm spending money on marketing, I'm not getting a return. Well, to decrease that lost marketing expense, I can put a follow up system in place. I can hire a VA instead of someone stateside to save on the salary cost using just that arbitrage. So when you look at the business that way, it's going to help you engineer it because again, everyone gets into business initially because they want to make money. But if you look at business through the lens of an engineer, through the lens that someone like Elon looks at Twitter, you're going to be able to achieve goals much faster and much more predictably because you're using first principles to get there. You're not using a gimmick or tactic or strategy. We implement and roll out the system, and the system is what helps us achieve that goal. And all we do is improve the system. And as long as the system continues to operate, we will continue to achieve our goals given enough time. So, this one's a little bit deep. I'll try to break these up into to some more chunks so that way it's a little bit easier to grasp some of these points. But that is how you engineer a wholesale business to achieve your goals in less time with less effort. And if you would like help getting this system built out, all you have to do is comment system down below, and someone on my team or I will reach out and book a call with you to help you build out the system because the reality is building this takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of money to build a system like this because when you install it, you can take two clients like we did from the middle of nowhere that were, working in someone else's company and help them consistently close 8, 9, and 11 deals last month with predictability and with sound principles. So it's not a flash in the pan. It's something that they can do every single month consistently because they have the right system in place. So if you want to shortcut that time that it takes to implement the system, you just want to piggyback on all the work that we've done, just comment systems down below. We'll reach out to you. We'll book a time. We'll audit your business and see if this is a fit. And we will see if we can help you get this all installed in your business to save you a ton of time. So that's all I got for you today. If you're watching the replay, again, comment any questions that you have about topics that we had. And if you jumped on today, I appreciate you jumping on. We'll be going live every Wednesday here in the group, covering different topics to help you scale and grow your wholesale or fix and flipping business, utilizing systems and principles, something that's not sexy or often talked about, but is the sure way to reduce your risk and scale and grow your business. So I will see you next week.